My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and 3 hours after we buried my mother, my older brother stood in her kitchen, looked me in the eye, and said, "You need to start packing. You can't live here for free anymore." For a few seconds, I thought grief had made me hear him wrong, because for the last 9 years, that house had not been free. I had paid for it with sleepless nights, with missed birthdays, with the career I never built, with relationships I never had, with every emergency room visit, every medication alarm, every whispered prayer beside my mother's bed at 2 in the morning. My brother Nathan had visited twice a year. My sister Allison posted pictures online and called herself Mom's strongest daughter, even though she hadn't changed one set of sheets, measured one dose of medicine, or sat through one night of Mom crying because she could not remember where she was. But I was the one who bathed her. I was the one who fed her. I was the one who learned how to read the fear in her eyes when she could no longer explain what hurt. And now, before the funeral flowers had even started to wilt, my siblings were standing in her kitchen calling me a freeloader. Nathan wore the same black suit he had worn at the cemetery, but his tie was already loose, like he had finished the emotional part of the day and moved on to business. Allison stood beside him with her phone in her hand, probably checking how many people had liked her funeral post. She had uploaded a picture of herself holding Mom's framed photo with the caption, "Saying goodbye to the woman who taught me everything about love." I had read that caption in the car after the burial and almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the woman who claimed Mom taught her everything about love had not sat with her for more than 15 minutes in the last 6 months. I was standing at the sink, rinsing coffee cups from the guests who had come back after the service. My black dress smelled like church flowers and hospital soap. My feet hurt. My head felt heavy. I had slept maybe 2 hours the night before, because even after Mom died, my body still woke up at 1:30 and 4 o'clock, waiting for the medication alarms that no longer needed me. Nathan tapped the kitchen table with 2 fingers. "Rachel, did you hear me?" I turned around slowly. "You want me to pack?" He sighed, like I was being difficult. "The house has to be handled. We can't let emotions make this messy." Allison nodded. "It belongs to all three of us now. We need to be practical." Practical. That was the word people used when they wanted to take something from you without sounding cruel. I looked past them into the living room. Mom's favorite blanket was still folded over the arm of her chair. Her reading glasses were still on the side table. The indentation from her hospital bed was still pressed into the carpet. The house still smelled like her lavender lotion, chicken soup, and the lemon cleaner I used every Friday because she liked the kitchen bright. And they were already talking about selling it. I said, "Mom hasn't even been gone one day." Nathan's jaw tightened. "That doesn't change reality." Allison added, "You've been living here rent-free for years, Rachel. You can't expect that to continue." Rent-free. For a moment, the whole room went quiet inside my head. I thought about the job I quit when Mom's stroke made it unsafe for her to be alone. I thought about the savings account I emptied for a walk-in shower after Allison said she would help later and never did. I thought about the nights I slept on the floor beside Mom's bed because she was scared of the dark. I thought about the last morning when she squeezed my hand so lightly I almost missed it and whispered, "You stayed." I looked at my sister and said, "Do you really think I stayed here because it was convenient?" She crossed her arms. "I think you got comfortable." That was the first time I felt something inside me go still. Not angry, not yet, just still. Nathan pulled a folder from under his arm. "I called a realtor this morning." I stared at him. "This morning?" He did not even look ashamed. "The market is good. Mom would want us to be smart." That was when I almost lost my breath. Because my mother had left something behind. Not money, not some hidden fortune, something better than that. She had left the truth. Nathan and Allison did not know about the letter in the attorney's office. They did not know about the document Mom signed 4 years earlier. They did not know that on the days they forgot to call, Mom asked me to write it down. They thought I had nothing. They thought grief would make me weak. They thought my silence meant I had no proof. But by the end of that week, my brother and sister would learn something they should have understood years ago. Caring for someone is not the same as waiting for them to die. And Mom had known the difference. Before I tell you what happened after the funeral, you need to understand who my mother was before she got sick. Her name was Margaret Bennett, but everyone called her Maggie. She was the kind of woman who remembered the names of cashiers, brought soup to sick neighbors, and kept birthday cards in a drawer sorted by month. She worked at the town library for 27 years. She had soft, gray eyes, a laugh that filled the kitchen, and a way of touching your shoulder when she passed behind you that made you feel safe without her saying a word. When I was little, Mom smelled like vanilla hand cream and old books. Every Saturday morning, she made pancakes shaped like letters. Nathan always got an N. Allison got an A. I got an R, but mine usually broke because R was harder to flip. Mom would slide the broken pancake onto my plate and whisper, "The imperfect ones taste better." For most of my childhood, I believed our family was normal. Nathan was the oldest, confident and loud, always treated like a future leader. Allison was pretty, dramatic, and somehow always forgiven before she even apologized. I was the quiet one, the helpful one, the one who noticed when the trash needed taking out, when Mom looked tired, when Dad's chair sat empty too long after he died. Dad passed when I was 19. A heart attack. Sudden. One morning he kissed Mom goodbye, and by dinner he was gone. Nathan was 24 and already living 2 hours away. Allison was 21 and engaged to a man she would divorce 3 years later. I was the only one still at home. After Dad died, Mom and I became a team. Not because anyone asked me, not because I was forced. It just happened. I helped with bills. I drove her to appointments. I sat at the kitchen table at night while she sorted through insurance papers with shaking hands. Back then, Nathan would call and say, "You're lucky you're close. I wish I could do more." Allison would say, "I can't handle sad stuff, but I'm praying." And everyone acted like wanting to help was almost the same as helping. Then Mom had the first stroke. It was small, the doctors said. Small enough that Nathan asked on the phone if it was really serious. Small enough that Allison posted, "Hug your moms tighter tonight," but did not visit until the following weekend. Small enough that the world expected Mom to bounce back. But she didn't. Her right hand stayed weak. Her balance changed. She started forgetting words. Not big things at first. She would point at the kettle and call it the water thing. She would ask what day it was twice in 1 hour. She would laugh it off, but I saw the fear behind her eyes. The second stroke came 11 months later. After that, she needed help every day. Nathan came to the hospital wearing a business suit and expensive shoes. He stood at the foot of Mom's bed and said, "We'll figure out a schedule." Allison cried loudly in the hallway and told a nurse, "My mother is my best friend." I was the one who slept in the chair beside the bed, with my coat over my knees. When Mom was discharged, the doctor explained the medication schedule, fall risks, physical therapy, diet changes, memory problems, and follow-up visits. Nathan nodded like he was taking it seriously. Allison took a selfie with Mom and wrote, "The strongest woman I know." That night, at our kitchen table, Nathan said, "We all need to step up." Allison said, "Absolutely." They both looked at me. I said, "I can cover the first couple of weeks until we figure it out." Nathan smiled with relief. That would be huge. Allison touched my hand. "You're so good at this kind of thing." This kind of thing. Taking temperatures, changing sheets, calling insurance, lifting Mom when her legs gave out, sitting in waiting rooms, cutting her food into small pieces, convincing her to shower when she was embarrassed, holding her while she cried because she knew she was becoming dependent. Apparently, I was good at that. 2 weeks became 2 months. 2 months became a year. A year became 9. Nathan's schedule never worked. Allison's anxiety always got worse when Mom needed something difficult. I adjusted because someone had to. At first, I kept my job at the dental office. Then Mom fell in the bathroom while I was at work and lay there for 40 minutes before a neighbor heard her calling. I quit 2 weeks later. Nathan said, "Are you sure that's wise?" Allison said, "Wow, you're such a good daughter." Neither of them offered to pay my lost income. Neither offered to take Mom for even 1 month. They praised me because praise was cheaper than help. And I let them. Because Mom needed me. Because someone had to stay. Because I thought love meant showing up even when no one else did. The first year of caring for Mom was hard. The second year was lonely. By the third year, lonely had become normal. My friends stopped inviting me places because I always said maybe and then canceled. Men I tried to date got tired of hearing, "I'm sorry, Mom had a bad night." My old coworkers moved on, got promotions, got married, bought houses. I learned the names of pharmacists, home health nurses, and billing representatives. I knew which pill made Mom dizzy. I knew which soup she could swallow on bad days. I knew which hallway floorboard creaked loud enough to wake her. I knew that when she said, "I want to go home," she did not always mean the house. Sometimes she meant before. Nathan visited on Thanksgiving and Christmas, sometimes Mother's Day if his wife reminded him. He always brought expensive flowers and stood awkwardly in the doorway like illness might stain him. He would kiss Mom's forehead, take a picture, and say, "You look great, Mom." Then he would ask me for coffee because he was exhausted from the drive. Allison came more often, but only when it was easy. She liked sitting beside Mom for 20 minutes while the room was clean and Mom was smiling. She took photos from angles that did not show the walker, the medication chart, or the adult briefs stacked in the closet. She posted captions like, "Cherishing every moment with my beautiful mama." After those visits, Mom would stare at the door for a long time. One afternoon, after Allison left, Mom whispered, "She smells like perfume and outside." I smiled because I thought she meant it kindly. Then Mom said, "You smell like laundry and worry." I went into the bathroom and cried with the fan on. Mom noticed more than people thought. Even when her memory got worse, she knew who came and who performed. She knew who sat with her because they loved her, and who sat with her because they wanted credit for loving her. That was why she asked me to keep the blue notebook. It started in year 4. She had been having a clear day. Those were rare and precious, like sunlight through a storm. We were at the kitchen table. I was cutting her toast into small squares when she touched my wrist. "Rachel," she said, "write things down." I thought she meant groceries. "What things?" She looked toward the living room where Nathan had sat the day before, promising to come back the next weekend. He had already texted that morning saying something came up. Mom said, "When they come, when they don't, what you pay, what you give up." I stared at her. "Mom, I don't want to keep score." Her eyes sharpened in a way I had not seen in months. "They are counting on that." That sentence scared me. I said, "Nathan and Allison aren't like that." Mom looked at me with such sadness that I had to look away. She whispered, "Baby, people can love you and still take too much." I bought a blue notebook the next day. At first, I felt guilty writing in it. March 14th, Nathan canceled visit. March 22nd, Allison stayed 35 minutes, took photos, did not help with bath. April 2nd, paid $270 for medication not covered by insurance. April 19th, missed Jenna's wedding because Mom had fever. May 6th, Nathan said he would send money for wheelchair ramp, did not. The notebook became less like a complaint and more like evidence that I existed. Because caregiving makes you invisible in a strange way. Everyone sees the sick person. Everyone sends prayers to the sick person. Everyone asks how the sick person is doing. Few people ask who washed the sheets at midnight, who held the cup, who cleaned the floor, who sat in the dark after the ambulance left. Mom asked. On her good days, she would point at the notebook and say, "Write that down." On bad days, she forgot my name but still reached for my hand. In year 5, the house needed repairs. The water heater broke first. Nathan said he was tight this month. Allison said she wished she could help, but her daughter needed braces. I used my emergency savings. Then the bathroom had to be remodeled after Mom fell again. I paid for part of it with a credit card. Nathan called it your choice. Allison said, "At least you live there too." That phrase followed me for years. At least you live there too. As if living in the house where I changed my mother's bedding, counted her pills, and listened to her cry at night was some kind of luxury. In year 6, Mom asked me to drive her to see an attorney named Paul Grant. I thought it was about medical power of attorney. Nathan and Allison were both busy, so I took her alone. Mr. Grant was a quiet man with silver hair and careful eyes. He spoke directly to Mom, not around her. That mattered to me. Mom held my hand through the whole meeting. I waited in the lobby for part of it because Mr. Grant said he needed to speak with her privately. When she came out, she looked tired but peaceful. In the car, I asked what she had done. She looked out the window and said, "Something fair." I did not push her. I wish now that I had, because 4 years later, that meeting would become the reason my siblings failed to throw me out of my own life. The week before Mom died, she stopped eating much. The hospice nurse told me it was normal, a gentle word for something that felt like being torn open slowly. Normal meant her hands were colder. Normal meant her breathing changed. Normal meant the body was beginning to let go, even if the daughter sitting beside it was not ready. Nathan came on Tuesday. He stayed 42 minutes. I know because I wrote it in the blue notebook after he left. He stood beside Mom's bed and talked loudly about his son's baseball tournament. Mom's eyes moved toward him, but she did not speak. Before leaving, he kissed her forehead and told me, "Call me if it gets close." It gets close. As if death was traffic and I could update him when we reached the exit. Allison came Thursday with a photographer friend. I wish I were exaggerating. She said the woman was just there for emotional support. But somehow, within 10 minutes, there were pictures of Allison holding Mom's hand near the window where the light was soft. Mom's eyes were closed in most of them. I pulled Allison into the hallway and said, "Do not post those." She looked offended. "People care about her, Rachel." "Then tell them to visit." Her face hardened. "You don't have to be cruel." Cruel. That was what they called me whenever I interrupted the performance. Mom died early Saturday morning. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that made the whole house feel like it was holding its breath. I was sitting beside her, half asleep, when her breathing changed. I called her name. Her fingers moved slightly under mine. I told her I loved her. I told her she could rest. I told her I would be okay, even though I did not know if that was true. Right before the end, her eyes opened. She looked directly at me, and in a voice so thin it barely sounded like her, she said, "You stayed." Then she was gone. I called Nathan first. He did not answer. I called Allison. She answered on the fourth ring, heard me crying, and said, "Oh my God, is it Mom?" By noon, the house was full. People brought casseroles, flowers, tissues, and advice. Allison arrived wearing sunglasses and collapsed dramatically into a chair. Nathan came with his wife and immediately asked where Mom kept the insurance papers. I moved through the day like a ghost. Funeral home, clothes for Mom, guest list, pastor, obituary, flowers, calls, more calls. Everyone asked me questions because everyone knew I had the answers. At one point, Allison said, "I can't think right now. Rachel knows all this stuff." Nathan said, "Yeah, she handled Mom's things." Handled, as if Mom had been a package. The funeral was 4 days later. The church was full of people who had loved the version of Mom they remembered. Library friends, neighbors, old church ladies, cousins I had not seen in years. They hugged me and said, "You were such a blessing to her." Nathan gave the first speech. He spoke about Mom teaching him ambition, strength, and family values. Allison gave the second. She cried through most of it and said, "My mother was my best friend." I sat in the front pew with my hands folded so tightly my fingers hurt. I did not speak, not because I had nothing to say, because if I stood up and told the truth, I was not sure I would stop. After the burial, everyone came back to the house. People filled plates, whispered memories, and touched my shoulder. The house sounded alive in a way it had not for years. I hated that. I hated that it took Mom dying for people to fill her rooms. Around 4, the guests began to leave. By 5, only close family remained. Aunt Mary, Mom's younger sister, was washing dishes beside me. She had helped when she could, mostly on Sundays, mostly when her own health allowed it. She squeezed my arm and said, "You sit, I'll finish." I almost did. Then Nathan walked into the kitchen with that folder under his arm. Allison followed him. His wife stayed in the doorway. Allison's husband suddenly became very interested in his phone. Nathan said, "Rachel, we need to discuss next steps." Aunt Mary turned from the sink. "Today?" Nathan ignored her. He said, "I've already spoken to a realtor. The house needs to be listed while interest rates are still decent." I stared at him. "Mom was buried this morning." Allison said gently, "That's why we need to move before things get emotional." I laughed once. I could not help it. Nathan's eyes narrowed. "This isn't funny." "No," I said, "it really isn't." Then he told me to pack. Then Allison called me comfortable. Then Nathan said the house belonged to all of us. And that was when Aunt Mary put down the dish towel. very choosing. She looked at Nathan and said, "You might want to call Paul Grant before you say another word." Nathan frowned. "Who?" I looked at Aunt Mary. She looked back at me with tears in her eyes. And for the first time that day, I realized she knew more than she had ever said. Nathan did not like being told he might be wrong, especially not by Aunt Mary, who had always been gentle enough that people mistook her kindness for weakness. He straightened his shoulders. "What does Paul Grant have to do with this?" Aunt Mary dried her hands on the towel. "He was your mother's attorney." Allison blinked. "Mom had an attorney?" I looked at her then, really looked at her. "You would know that if you had come to any of her appointments." Her face flushed. "That's not fair." Aunt Mary said, "No, Allison. What wasn't fair was letting your sister carry everything and then walking in here with a realtor's name before the coffee from the funeral was cold." Nathan's wife whispered, "Maybe we should do this another day." Nathan shot her a look, and she went quiet. He turned back to me. "Fine. If there's an attorney, we'll talk to him. But that doesn't change the fact that this house is part of the estate." Aunt Mary looked at me again. This time there was something in her face I could not read. Not pity, not exactly. More like apology. She said, "Rachel, did Maggie ever tell you what she signed?" My throat tightened. "She said it was something fair." Nathan scoffed. "Convenient." I turned to him. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means you were alone with Mom for years. Who knows what you convinced her to sign?" The room went silent. That accusation hit harder than I expected. For 9 years, I had protected Mom's dignity. I had kept her clean, fed, safe, and loved. I had turned away when she cried from embarrassment. I had slept in chairs, fought insurance companies, and learned how to lift her without hurting her shoulder. And my brother, who had visited like a guest, was suggesting I had used her weakness. Aunt Mary stepped between us. "Be very careful, Nathan." He looked at her. "I'm being realistic." "No," she said. "You're being exactly who your mother was afraid you were." Allison gasped. "Aunt Mary!" Mary's voice shook. "Don't you Aunt Mary me. I watched your sister disappear into this house for almost a decade while you two sent flowers and excuses." Allison's eyes filled with tears. "I loved Mom." "So did Rachel," Mary said. "She just loved her with her hands, not her captions." That was the first time anyone had said it like that. Allison looked at me with something like hatred. Not because I had spoken, because someone else finally had. Nathan closed his folder. "We'll meet with the attorney. Until then, nothing here in this house gets moved." I said, "You already called a realtor." He ignored that. Then Allison looked toward the living room. "What about Mom's jewelry?" Aunt Mary stared at her. "Your mother died 4 days ago." "I'm just asking." "No," Mary said softly. "You're not." After they left, the house felt ruined. Not because Mom was gone, that pain was already there, but because my siblings had walked through her rooms with inventory in their eyes. Aunt Mary stayed with me after everyone else left. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Mom used to sort coupons and drink tea. I asked, "What did Mom sign?" Mary folded her hands. "I don't know everything. She didn't tell me the details. But she told me she made sure you would not be punished for staying." I looked away because tears came too fast. Mary reached across the table. "She knew, Rachel." Those 2 words broke me. For years, the hardest part was wondering if Mom understood what my life had become. On her bad days, she barely knew what year it was. On her good days, she apologized so much I had to tell her to stop. But I never knew how much she saw. Mary said, "She asked me to witness a letter." "A letter?" Mary nodded. "Paul Grant has it. She said it was only to be read if Nathan and Allison made things ugly." I laughed through my tears. "She really said ugly?" Mary almost smiled. "She said worse, actually." That sounded like Mom. The next morning, I called Paul Grant's office. His assistant knew my name before I finished introducing myself. "Ms. Bennett," she said gently, "Mr. Grant has been expecting your call." Something about that made my hands shake. The appointment was set for Friday at 10. Nathan insisted he and Allison attend. Of course he did. He wanted to watch me lose. Allison texted that she hoped I was ready to be honest. I did not answer. On Thursday night, I found the blue notebook in Mom's bedside drawer. I had not opened it since the week before she died. My fingers trembled as I turned the pages. There were my notes: dates, visits, payments, canceled promises, missed calls. Then, near the back, I found handwriting that was not mine. Mom's. Uneven, shaky, but hers. It said, "Rachel gave me years the others only promised. If they call her selfish, read this twice." I sat on the floor beside her empty bed and held the notebook to my chest. For the first time since she died, I did not feel alone in that house. Paul Grant's office was above a small bank on Main Street. I had been there once before, 4 years earlier, when Mom signed whatever she had called something fair. Back then, I waited in the lobby and tried not to wonder why she looked so calm afterward. On Friday morning, I arrived 15 minutes early. Nathan was already there, pacing near the window. Allison sat on a chair with her sunglasses pushed into her hair, looking wounded before anything had happened. Nathan looked at my plain black dress and said, "Are you planning to cry through the whole meeting?" I said, "Are you planning to pretend you cared through it?" Allison whispered, "This is exactly the attitude I was talking about." Before I could answer, Paul Grant opened his office door. He was older than I remembered, with silver hair, tired eyes, and a voice that made people lower theirs. "Rachel," he said gently, "I'm sorry for your loss." I thanked him. Then he looked at Nathan and Allison. "I'm sorry for yours as well." Nathan nodded once, businesslike. Allison dabbed at her eyes, though there were no tears yet. We sat around a polished wooden table. Mr. Grant placed a file in front of him. Not a huge file, not dramatic, just a folder with Mom's name on the tab. Margaret Bennett. Seeing her full name typed like that made my stomach twist. Mr. Grant began. "Your mother updated her estate documents 4 years ago and again 18 months ago. At both times, I met with her privately and confirmed her wishes." Nathan leaned forward. "Privately meaning Rachel wasn't in the room?" "Yes," Mr. Grant said. "That is standard practice, especially when one child is a caregiver." Nathan looked disappointed that the answer did not help him. Mr. Grant continued. "Your mother was very clear. She wanted her bank account divided equally after final expenses. Personal items are addressed in a written list. The house is not part of the general division." Allison frowned. "What does that mean?" Mr. Grant looked at me briefly, then back at them. "Your mother transferred the house to Rachel through a deed while retaining the right to live there for the rest of her life. The deed was recorded 4 years ago. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then Nathan laughed. No, that's not right. Mr. Grant did not react. It is right. Allison sat up. Mom gave Rachel the house? Your mother gave Rachel the house because Rachel had become her full-time caregiver, had paid significant household expenses, and had given up employment and income to keep Margaret at home. Nathan's face turned red. That house was supposed to be for all of us. Mr. Grant opened another page. Your mother anticipated that response. Allison said, Of course she did. Rachel probably filled her head with lies. Mr. Grant's expression changed, just slightly. Ms. Bennett, I would advise you to be careful with accusations of undue influence. Your mother requested capacity evaluations at the time of signing. I have copies. She also insisted that neither Rachel nor any other family member be present for key discussions. Nathan gripped the chair arms. She was sick. She was sick, Mr. Grant said. She was not incapable. That sentence landed like a door closing. Then he opened a sealed envelope. I recognized Mom's handwriting on the front. To be read if my children forget who stayed. My hands started shaking under the table. Mr. Grant looked at me. Rachel, are you comfortable with me reading this? I could not speak, so I nodded. He unfolded the letter. My dear children, he read, if you are hearing this, then I for the hotel. And Allison covered her mouth. Mr. Gwaking continued. Nathan, you always believed responsibility meant making decisions after the hard part was over. Allison, you always believed emotion was the same as presence. I love you both, but love does not accord through. Nathan stared at the table. Comfort, comfort, privacy, and a future she deserved. She did not take from me. She kept me home. She kept me human. Mr. Grant's voice softened, but he kept reading. If you call her lucky because six-like house, then you did not see what that house became. It became a hospital room, a night watch, a place where my daughter carried your food so I would not have to carry it alone. Allison started crying for real now. Ixem leaving the cash to Rachel, not because I love your core, but about she gave more. If you're ask yourself, hurt for your torse or by the truth behind it. The air clips except the last line. Punish the child the today because you've guilty that you left. For 2 once, not our Nathan had any to say. I thought the letter would end the fight. That was my mistake. Truth can silence people for a moment, but it does not always change who they are. Nathan was quiet for maybe 30 seconds. Then he pushed back his chair and said, This is manipulation. Mr. Grant folded the letter carefully. This is your mother's signed statement. No, Nathan said. This is guilt turned into paperwork. Allison wiped her face. Mom would never write that unless someone made her feel abandoned. I looked at her. You were abandoned, or she was? Her face twisted. Don't act like you're the only one who lost her. I'm not, I said. But I'm the only one you expected to lose everything else, too. Nathan stood. We'll challenge it. Mr. Grant nodded calmly. That is your right. I should tell you that your mother prepared for that. The deed was recorded properly. The evaluations support capacity. The notes in the file support intent. And there is additional documentation. Nathan paused. What additional documentation? Mr. Grant looked at me. Rachel, did your mother ask you to keep a blue notebook? My throat tightened. Yes. Allison's eyes widened. What notebook? I reached into my bag and placed it on the table. The cover was worn soft at the corners. A coffee stain marked the back. The elastic band was stretched from years of use. It did not look powerful. It looked like something a tired daughter carried because no one else was listening. Mr. Grant opened it gently. He did not read everything. He did not need to. He read dates. Nathan canceled visit. Allison stayed 35 minutes, took photos, did not help with bath. Rachel paid for medication. Nathan promised ramp money. No payment received. Allison posted Mother's Day photo. Visit lasted 22 minutes. Rachel missed work interview due to fall. Rachel paid water heater invoice. Nathan declined weekend care. Allison said she cannot handle hospitals. Allison stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. That is private. I looked at her. So was my life. Nathan pointed at the notebook. This is disgusting. You kept records on us? I said, Mom asked me to. I don't believe you. Mr. Grant turned to the back pages. Some entries are in Margaret's handwriting. Nathan went still. Mr. Grant read one of them. Rachel thinks I do not see. I see. I see her hands shake when she pays bills. I see her smile when they call, so I do not feel hurt. I see what my other children do not want counted. Allison began to cry harder. Stop! Mr. Grant closed the notebook. I think we can stop for today. Nathan grabbed his folder. This isn't over. Aunt Mary was waiting outside the office. I had not known she was coming. When I walked out, she stood and opened her arms. I stepped into them like a child. Nathan walked past us without speaking. Allison stopped in front of Aunt Mary. You knew, she said. Aunt Mary nodded. Some of it. And you didn't tell us? Mary's face was sad. You didn't ask enough questions to deserve answers. Allison left crying. For one brief, foolish moment, I felt sorry for her. Then I remembered Mom's last year, her confusion, her fear, the way Allison would text, thinking of you both, instead of coming over. The way I would send back a heart because I did not have the energy to be honest. On the way home, I stopped at the grocery store because grief does not cancel errands. I bought milk, bread, eggs, and the tea Mom used to like, even though she was no longer there to drink it. When I pulled into the driveway, Nathan's truck was parked outside. My stomach tightened. He was standing on the porch with a man I did not recognize. The man held a clipboard. I got out of the car slowly. Nathan said, This is a realtor. We're just getting an estimate. I looked at the man. This house is not for sale. The realtor looked uncomfortable. I was told all owners agreed. I looked at Nathan. Nathan stared back at me with cold eyes. I said, He lied. The realtor lowered his clipboard. I'm sorry. I'll leave. After he walked away, Nathan stepped closer. You think a piece of paper makes you better than us? No, I said. It makes me protected from you. His face hardened. You stole our inheritance. I looked at the house behind him. Mom's wind chimes moved softly in the breeze. No, Nathan. I inherited what I already paid for. For a second, I thought he might shout. Instead, he smiled in a way I had never seen before. Enjoy being alone in it. Then the talking his truck and left. I stood in the driveway with groceries melting in the back seat and realized something painful. Sometimes the people who leave still expect to be mourned like they stayed. After the attorney meeting, Allison went to war in the only place she had ever been brave: online. She did not name me at first. She posted a black and white photo of Mom's hands and wrote, "Grief shows you who people really are. Some people use illness to get close to assets." By noon, cousins were commenting with broken hearts. By 2, one of Allison's friends wrote, "I know exactly what you mean. Caregivers can be so manipulative." By dinner, my phone was full of messages from relatives who had not visited Mom in years, but suddenly had strong opinions about what she would have wanted. A cousin named Denise wrote, "I'm not taking sides, but a house should be shared equally." I typed back, "Did you share the caregiving equally?" She did not reply. Another cousin wrote, "Your mom loved all of you." I answered, "Yes," and she still knew who stayed. Then I stopped responding. Aunt Mary told me, "You don't owe everyone access to your pain." I tried to believe her, but the posts kept coming. Allison changed her profile picture to one from the funeral. In it, she was crying beside Mom's casket, one hand pressed to her chest. I remembered when that photo was taken. She had asked her daughter to take it because, in her words, "I want one last picture with Mom." One last picture. As if Mom were a monument. 3 days later, I found a box on the porch. No note, just a cardboard box filled with things from Mom's room that Allison had apparently taken before leaving the day of the funeral. A scarf, 2 framed photos, a bottle of perfume. The little ceramic bird from Mom's windowsill. On top was a sticky note. "You can keep the house. I want nothing from a place full of lies." I sat on the porch steps and held the ceramic bird in my hand. Mom had bought it at a flea market when I was 13. One wing was chipped. She loved imperfect things. Maybe that was why she loved us so stubbornly. That night, I opened the blue notebook again. I do not know why. Maybe I wanted to punish myself. Maybe I wanted to remember I was not crazy. Near the back, I found another page in Mom's handwriting. I had missed it before because 2 pages were stuck together. It said, "If Allison cries, remember she cries easily. If Nathan gets angry, remember anger is easier than shame. Rachel, do not confuse their pain with proof you did wrong." I read that sentence until I knew it by heart. The next morning, Nathan came back. This time, he brought his wife, Karen. She looked embarrassed before she even stepped onto the porch. I opened the door, but did not invite them in. Nathan said, "We need Mom's financial records." "For what?" "To review them. Paul Grant has what you need." "I don't trust Paul Grant." "You don't trust anyone who tells you no." Karen whispered, "Nathan." He ignored her. "Rachel, be reasonable. You got the house. At least let us go through the belongings." I looked at Karen. "Did he tell you he came here with a realtor after the attorney meeting?" Her eyes flicked toward him. Nathan said, "That's not relevant." "It is to me." Karen looked at him. "You said you only called someone." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Can we focus?" I realized then that even his wife did not know the whole truth. Maybe no one in their lives did. Maybe Nathan and Allison had built their versions of reality so carefully that people believed them because the truth was too ugly to imagine. I said, "You can schedule a time with Aunt Mary present. You can take items Mom listed for you. You cannot walk through this house like shoppers. Nathan laughed. Listen to you, queen of the estate. Karen looked ashamed. I said, no, daughter of the woman who lived here. That shut him up for half a second. Then he leaned close enough that Karen touched his arm to stop him. You think Mom chose you because you were special? He said. She chose you because you had nothing else. That one found the soft place, because part of me had feared it too. Maybe I had stayed because my life was small. Maybe Mom had left me the house because she felt sorry for me. Maybe my siblings were right that I had become so wrapped around caregiving that I did not know who I was without it. I almost stepped back. Then the wind chimes rang behind me, Mom's wind chimes. And I remembered her letter. She kept me human. I looked at Nathan and said, I had less because I gave more. Karen looked at me then, really looked. Nathan had no answer. After they left, Karen stayed behind for a moment at the bottom of the steps. Quietly, she said, I'm sorry. Nathan called her name from the truck. She looked toward him, then back at me. I didn't know it was like that, she whispered. Then you left. It was not justice, but it was the first crack in Nathan's story. And once a lie cracks, people start looking through it. The final break came at Aunt Mary's house 2 weeks later. She invited the family for what she called a remembrance dinner. I almost did not go. I was tired of rooms where people measured grief like a competition. But Aunt Mary said, come for me and bring the notebook. So I went. The dinner was in her small dining room with yellow walls and too many chairs squeezed around the table. Nathan came with Karen. Allison came with her daughter and no husband. A few cousins were there, including Denise, who had written about equal sharing and then disappeared when I answered her. For the first 20 minutes, everyone was painfully polite. Then Allison ruined it. She placed her fork down and said, I just can't pretend this is normal. Aunt Mary closed her eyes for a second. Allison. No, Allison said. We're all sitting here like Rachel didn't take Mom's house. I felt every eye turn toward me. Nathan leaned back, saying nothing, which meant he was happy to let Allison bleed first. I set my glass down. Mom made a legal choice. Allison laughed bitterly. Because you isolated her. That word changed the room. Isolated. I thought about the years I begged them to visit, the holidays when I asked Nathan to stay an extra night, the weekends Allison canceled because she was tired, the times I sent updates no one answered. I said, I asked you to come. Allison's face twisted. You always made us feel guilty. Aunt Mary said, maybe guilt was the correct feeling. Denise shifted in her chair. Nathan finally spoke. Mary, this isn't helping. No, Aunt Mary said. What didn't help was all of you letting one woman do the work of a family. Allison started crying. I couldn't handle seeing Mom like that. I looked at her. Neither could I. I just didn't have the luxury of leaving. The room went quiet. Then Aunt Mary nodded toward my bag. Read it, she said. My hands went cold. I knew what she meant. I did not want to read from the notebook. Not because I was ashamed, but because once I did, no one could pretend anymore. Sometimes exposing the truth feels less like victory and more like opening a wound in public. But then I thought of Mom's handwriting. If they call her selfish, read this twice. I took out the blue notebook. Allison whispered, "Oh my God." Nathan said, "This again?" I opened to year 6. I read calmly. January 12th. Nathan promised to stay with Mom during Rachel's dental surgery. Canceled the night before. Rachel postponed surgery. Karen looked at Nathan. I turned the page. February 3rd. Allison visited for Mom's birthday. Stayed 1 hour. Posted 12 photos. Did not help clean kitchen or change bedding. Allison's daughter looked at her mother. I kept reading. March 8th. Rachel paid $320 for medication. Nathan said reimbursement would come Friday. No reimbursement. Nathan's face reddened. April 19th. Mom asked why Allison doesn't come unless camera is out. Rachel changed subject. Allison covered her mouth. I read one more. This one was Mom's handwriting. June 2nd. I heard Rachel crying in laundry room. She told me she was fine. She lies to protect me. My other children lie to protect themselves. No one spoke. Not about Nathan. I closed the notebook. My voice shook when I said, I did not want to keep score. Mom asked me to because she knew one day you would make me defend the years you ignored. Allison is crying, but concerned now. Nathan, you think this makes you a saint? No, I said. I think it makes me the person who was there. Karen stood up. Freeloader looked at her. She turned to Nathan. Did you cancel her surgery? Nathan watching furious. That's not the point. It is to me. Allison's daughter Emily whispered, Mom, did Grandma really ask why you only came for pictures? Allison broke then. Not you're dramatic, not for attention. She just folded into herself. I couldn't do it, she said. I couldn't see her like that. I looked at my sister, and for the first time in years, I saw not a villain, but a coward. That you does not make it okay. Cowardice can still hurt people. Nathan pushed back his chair. I'm done being judged by a notebook. Aunt Mary said, No, Nathan, you're done being protected from it. He left first. Karen to not follow immediately. She looked me and said, in front of everyone, Rachel, I'm sorry we didn't see it. That was the closest thing to public justice I ever got. Not Nathan apologizing, not person looking with the two, with not turning away. After your dinner, Allison approached me near the front door. Her voice was spins. Did Mom hate me? The question hurt. I said, No. She waited for you. Allison cried harder. I today hug her, not because I wanted to be cruel, because for once, I let her carry her own grief. After Aunt Mary's dinner, the fight slowly lost its audience. That mattered more than I expected. Nathan still threatened to challenge the deed, but fewer relatives repeated his version. Allison deleted the post about assets. Denise sent one message that said, I didn't know. I did not answer. Not everything needs a response. Paul Grant told me Nathan could still try court, but he would have a hard time winning. The deed was legal. Mom's evaluations were clear. Her letter was clear. The notebook was not even necessary, but it told the story the paperwork could not. A month after the funeral, Nathan asked to collect the items Mom had left him. He came without Karen. He looked tired, thinner maybe, but still proud in that stiff Bennett way. Aunt Mary was with me. We had placed his things in boxes near the front door. Dad's watch, some books, Mom's old recipe tin because she had written that Nathan loved her chili when he was young. A framed photo of all of us from a beach trip before Dad died. Nathan opened the recipe tin and stared at it for a long time. Then he said, I didn't know she remembered that. I said, "She remembered a lot." He swallowed but did not apologize. I no longer waited for one. Allison came the following week. She brought back the scarf from the box she had left on the porch. She said she had taken it because it smelled like Mom. I said, "You can keep it." She cried, "Are you sure?" "Yes." For a second, I thought she would hug me. I think she thought so too. Instead, she said, "I'm sorry I called you a freeloader." The words were small, late, and not enough, but they were real. I said, "Thank you." She nodded, then she left. That was how healing started. Not with some perfect family reunion, not with everyone admitting everything, just small pieces of truth landing where lies used to sit. I kept the house. For weeks, that sentence felt too big to believe. I kept the house. The same house where Mom made letter pancakes. The same house where Dad fixed the porch light badly 3 different times. The same house where I lost years and found a different kind of strength. The same house my siblings saw as inheritance and Mom saw as shelter. At first, I could not change anything. Her chair stayed in the living room. Her lotion stayed by the bed. Her tea stayed in the cabinet. Grief made ordinary objects feel sacred. Then, slowly, I began to make the house livable again. I moved the hospital bed out. I cried when the men carried it away, not because I wanted it there, but because its absence made the ending real. I painted Mom's bedroom a soft blue. She had always wanted blue, but said beige was practical. I turned the room into a reading room with her old library lamp, 2 shelves of books, and the ceramic bird with the chipped wing on the windowsill. I kept the wind chimes. Every time they rang, I thought of her. Not the sick version only, not the fragile body, not the medication chart. I remembered the woman who laughed at broken pancakes and told me imperfect things tasted better. I also started working again. Part-time at first, then more. Not at the dental office. Too much had changed. I got a job at the library where Mom used to work. The first day, I walked through the doors and smelled paper, dust, and quiet. I had to stand in the bathroom for 5 minutes before I could stop crying. One afternoon, a little girl asked me for books about birds. I showed her the shelf, and when she smiled, I felt something inside me loosen. For 9 years, my life had been organized around loss. Now, slowly, it was making room for something else. People ask if I forgave Nathan and Allison. I don't know. Forgiveness used to sound like letting people back into the house and pretending the walls had not heard what they said. I do not believe that anymore. Maybe forgiveness is quieter. Maybe it is giving my sister a scarf without giving her access to wound me again. Maybe it is letting my brother take the recipe tin without begging him to understand me. Maybe it is living in the house my mother left me and no longer feeling guilty for surviving the work it took to keep her there. On the first anniversary of Mom's death, I sat on the porch with Aunt Mary. We drank tea from mismatched mugs. The wind chimes moved in the late summer air. Aunt Mary asked, "Do you ever wish it had gone differently?" I looked at the yard, the cracked bird bath, the porch steps, the windows glowing warm behind us. "Yes," I said. "I wish they had loved her better." Then, after a moment, I added, "I wish they had loved me better too." Aunt Mary reached over and held my hand. I did not cry. That surprised me. Maybe some pain does not disappear. Maybe it simply becomes something you can sit beside without letting it swallow you. My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 34 years old. I gave up 9 years of my life to care for my mother. And 3 hours after her funeral, my siblings called me a freeloader and told me to pack. They thought the house was the inheritance. They were wrong. The real inheritance was the truth my mother left behind. A letter, a notebook,
a recorded history of who showed up and who only wanted credit for it. My siblings thought I had lived in that house for free. But love is never free when you are the only one paying the cost. And when they finally tried to take the last piece of peace I had left, Mom's words stood up for me when I was too tired to stand alone. She saw me. She knew. And in the end, that was worth more than anything they tried to take.